Good evening and welcome everyone to the December 16, 2014 meeting of the Downersville Village Council. Actually the last meeting of 2014. There are copies of our meeting agenda on either side of the room. If you haven't already done so, I would invite you to please grab a copy from off one of the shelves and you can follow along with our proceedings tonight. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as a segment under item 4, which is reserved for public comment of a general nature with respect to items not appearing on tonight's agenda. And we will probably get to that one pretty quickly. It is our proud tradition to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, so I would invite everyone at this time to please stand and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Olson?
Here.
Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. It brings us to item 3 in our agenda, which pertains to minutes of prior council meetings. We have several sets of minutes to review and approve tonight, including our minutes of the December 4th special town hall meeting regarding proposed village facilities, the second such meeting on December 6th, and our most recent regular village council meeting that was held on December 9th, 2014. Are there any questions, comments, corrections, or changes to any of those minutes from any members of the village council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Perfect. Those minutes are approved. And that brings us to item 4 on the agenda, which, as mentioned, is reserved for questions and comments from the audience with respect to matters of a general nature, that is, items that are not appearing on tonight's agenda for discussion or a vote. So if any members of the audience at this point have any questions or comments of a general nature, please come to the podium, as Dr. Goodman just has, and we would welcome hearing from you. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Gordon Goodman. I live at 5834 Midall, and I'd like to say good evening to the mayor, commissioners, and staff. There were 2 things that I'd like to mention under this comments about things that aren't on the agenda. I have asked the manager to look into a situation that arose this afternoon when I submitted the remarks on several of these topics, because I like to give people advance notice of what I'm going to bring up at the meeting. And I submitted that at 11:55, but none of those comments appear in the council responses along with the other remarks. So I sent the manager a copy of the screen that was displayed as the thank you for participating in the survey. It has code information, so perhaps we can identify what happened to those comments. But I'm hoping that you do have a fairly reliable e-remarks system, and that this is a very quirky thing. I'm asking you, though, to look carefully at that survey mechanism and see that it's functioning as it should.
Bring that to our attention.
One of the things that I did want to ask about is the topic that we dealt with on the 2nd of December when the Good Samaritan Hospital's rezoning and institutional master plan were approved by the council. We had quite a discussion at that time of the maintenance of the buffer zones, which at that time I thought had been established 20 years before and had not received any maintenance. Since that time, I've looked into the origin of them, and I think that rather it's 25 years ago that the council, in approving the planned unit development, or Plan Development 19, that permitted the hospital to exist in a residential zoning, also at that time required the no disturb and the no build zones. So it's been closer to 25 years than 20 years without any maintenance. At the time, 2 weeks ago, the attorney for the hospital corporation provided a memorandum to the village attorney about willingness to negotiate something related to that maintenance, and the mayor made a good deal of appraisal of the situation, which has been reported in the Little Trib this week, that we do need to have some arrangements, and that the village was going to take the lead in getting parties to talk to each other. So my question tonight is, what is the status of those, and can we expect some action before this year ends?
Sure. The answer to the question is that efforts have been made and communications have been begun with the stakeholders involved, and we are looking to actually set up a meeting, which I think is the only way that this is going to productively advance, by having the principals of the key stakeholders actually sit down and talk. As a practical matter, while dates have been discussed, and we're looking at doing that before too long, with the advent of the holidays and year-end obligations, so on and so forth, vacations of people involved, I think as a practical matter that will probably be in January.
The other thought I've had over these 2 weeks is that although we heard from the attorney, and he seemed to be representing the Advocate Health Care Organization, it's really the hospital and their leadership that I think would be most productive in discussing this maintenance of the land on the hospital's property. They do have a green team. Everyone admires what they've done in maintaining the part of the hospital that the green team has responsibility for. So I'm hoping that David Fox and members of his green team would be part of these principals discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. And happy holidays to you. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to matters of a general nature, with respect to things not on tonight's agenda? Good evening.
Good evening. I have a little stage fright, so bear with me. I sent you a letter, but I guess you guys didn't get it yet. Anyway, I'd like to say instead of a high-end condo, we need high-end apartment buildings. I'm a real estate agent since 1984, so we've been selling condos on and off again. We really need high-end apartment buildings where people can go in and rent and leave. I think if you're looking at $400,000 for a sale price, they're not going to get it, because you've got the taxes, which are going to be high, and then also the HOA fees. It's not feasible. I have to tell you about my client in one of the apartment complexes who bought his unit for $373. We were trying to sell it for $322, and we couldn't do it. His taxes are $8,400 a year, and his HOA fee is $475 a year. If you just add that all up, it's really prohibitive. This is for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit in one of the buildings. I don't want to mention any names, so I'm going to just skip through all that stuff. This particular homeowners association did sue this builder. The builder is long gone, and they have no recourse whatsoever. It's kind of a sad situation. Then my second thing I wanted to say was, we have the building directly across the street, so we see this place every day, 942 Maple. And I tell my clients and I tell my grandkids, you know, how the street was built, that the Israel Blodgett and Samuel Curtis came with their tree trunk and they laid it all out, and that's why it's on the diagonal. These kinds of stories are really nice, and if you put something like that in there, it's gonna make a big detriment. I guess I better quit because that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Solomon, and there will be an opportunity for public comment with respect to the requested special uses on the agenda later tonight. Did receive your letter. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to items that are not on our agenda tonight? Questions or comments of a general nature? Hearing none further, we'll move, thank you for those comments. We'll move to item 5, which pertains to council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with the community and those present items of interest or goings on in the community. We'll start tonight with Commissioner Barnett.
I have no report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We'll go back to Commissioner Jose.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Olson.
No report, just wanted to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Rankin.
No report, thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Newsted, I'm going back and forth.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick report out as to what's happening at Longfellow Center this week. The Downers Grove Fire Department, as part of MABUS Division 16, is doing a TRT training, which is a Tactical Response Team training. It's MABUS 16 is the departments from all around the community. We've had Naperville, Lyle Woodridge, Bolingbrook, and our own staff members from the Downers Grove Fire Department using the boiler room tunnel, which is not a very pleasant place as a confined space training. I bring this up tonight because I just want to share a quick story about the success of the training and how getting to see our firefighters in action, albeit in a training scenario, it just gives me a very good feeling about the safety and the coverage that we have here in our village. Our fire department is ready and can respond to any type of situation, and if you were to see where they put their victims in this situation, it is definitely not a place that anybody would want to be. The coordination and capabilities of not only the Downers Grove Fire Department, but the other members of MABUS Division 16 is outstanding. And I actually just wanted to say thanks to the fire department for using some other public assets as training sites around our village. It's been a real eye-opener for me to watch and be part of. We have one more day tomorrow, but it's a really interesting thing to see and watch our fire department train. Also, Mayor, there's a couple of coat collection boxes out in our lobby here at Village Hall and over at the police department. There's an annual coat drive. If you happen to have a spare winter coat, or if you get a new one maybe next week and you're looking to get rid of your old one, please bring the old one back over here to Village Hall or the police department. There will be collecting used coats through, I think, the first week of January. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Have a great Christmas and a happy holiday, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This will be the last time I get to report out on this. We have 8 days left until Christmas, so if you have any shopping that's left, please remember. I know I sound like a broken record, but I can't stress how important sales tax revenue is for our community. So if you have any shopping left to do, please remember Downers Grove. We have all the stores that the surrounding communities have, if not better. Maybe one or two we don't have, but I know you can find your product, your Christmas gift here in our town. I want to take if I can have executive privileges there, Mayor, I'd like to wish my son Gavin a happy 6th birthday. I know he's going to be watching this on the rebroadcast or podcast later. He's attending his first Christmas program at St. Mary's tonight, so I told him I couldn't be there tonight to be with his class and everyone else at the school because we had an important item on our agenda, but I told him I would give him a shout out tonight. And I would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. If you travel safe, and we look forward to seeing you at our first meeting in 2015. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And we're going to interrupt today's regularly scheduled program to make an on-the-spot mayoral proclamation wishing, on behalf of the Village of Downers Grove, Gavin Durkin a very happy 6th birthday.
Thanks.
We'll get that framed for you later.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of things. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone that came out to the 4th annual ComEd Town Hall meeting. We're going to be hearing a little bit about that later tonight, most likely. This is a annual meeting that the Village of Downers Grove has hosted and organized with senior representatives of Commonwealth Edison with respect to needs to enhance and maintain the reliability of electrical service here in the community. One thing that ComEd representatives explained at the meeting, and Commissioner Jose, Commissioner Olson, and Commissioner Rankin were there that night as well with me, is that folks often confuse ComEd as the one who's selling the electricity when they're really more like FedEx. The electricity comes from other places, they simply are in charge of the delivery, and oftentimes the rates are set somewhere else. There were a number of comments about rate increases at the meeting, but really the focus of these efforts are with respect to the reliability of the service, not so much the price of the service, but making sure that the electricity is there when you need it. It's been a very effective program. We've been doing it, as mentioned, for 4 years now, and I take it as a badge of success that the attendance has dwindled steadily since we first started doing it. Now, mind you, we didn't have the storms this past summer that we've had in prior years. I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. But I think every time we hold these town hall meetings where residents and businesses alike get to actually sit down face-to-face with senior representatives of ComEd, there are issues that are identified and solved, and I believe we're going to have a little bit of a report on some of that progress over the last 4 years sometime later tonight. I'm looking at our electricity czar over in the corner, and she's saying yes. Item number 2 is I also want to, on behalf of the village, congratulate and welcome a new corporate headquarters to Downers Grove. Today, we have ribbon cutting for CompuSystems at their new headquarters at 2651 Warrenville Road, the Corridors 1 building in Downers Grove. They've really done a fantastic build out of that space, and the village manager and also Michael Castle with the Economic Development Corporation were there with me this morning for the ribbon cutting. This is a terrific company. We got to learn a lot about them, what CompuSystem does, and they moved their headquarters from another place in Illinois. They had many different choices, but chose our community, so my appreciation to everyone that enticed them to do so. CompuSystems has been around since 1976. They are privately owned. They are a leader in providing registration, data management, and lead retrieval services to the exposition industry. I call that trade shows. Expositions, I think of Lewis and Clark, so I'll go with trade shows. They represent more than 100 clients and more than 200 trade shows annually. As a privately held business, it was nice to actually speak to a couple of the principals, Clark Williams, who's the chairman of the company, and his son Chris Williams, who is the president. Very handsome space, and I know Commissioner Durkin will like this. The space is about, look at Mr. Fieldman, I think it was almost 4,000 square feet. Oh, I'm sorry, 40,000 square feet? Correct. I was missing a digit there. Almost 40,000 square feet in that building, and they will be bringing approximately 240 employees to Downers Grove. So we welcome them and congratulate them on making the best choice and coming to Downers Grove for their corporate headquarters. That's all I have. That brings us to item 6, which is reserved for public hearings. We have no public hearings tonight, so we will move on to the consent agenda. Item 7, do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda? Any questions or comments from members of the village council with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to our active agenda, item 8. We have a number of items on our active agenda tonight. First, do I have, with respect to item 8A, do I have a motion with respect to authorization of the special use to permit a residential condominium development in the downtown business zoning district at 936-942 Maple Avenue?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on this item from members of the audience?
Good evening again, Mayor. Gordon Goodman, 5834 Middle. And I have some comments of my own that I'd like to make, but I also would like to introduce to you an expert witness who I had talked to while we were both away, I was in New York over Thanksgiving, and we tried to make connections when I got back, but he was away. So finally, at the beginning of this week, we did make some connections. As you recall, I've appealed to the council to delay the hearing so that we could hear from the expert witness, but it turns out that he was intrigued enough by this issue that he sort of thought about it at night, and he called me this morning to say that he did have a particular issue that he thought it would be very useful for the council to hear about. The implications of the possible approval of this are very substantial. So I'd like to introduce to you Joe Abel. Probably before most of your time, he was the Director of Planning for the County of DuPage for many years, and since that time, he's been in private practice, acting as an expert witness for developers, municipalities, and I'm very pleased to be able to present to you Joe Abel, who will explain his expert credentials in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Abel.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to have this discussion. I did call Gordon this morning, but we did connect while he was out of town a little bit, and I had started doing some research on this about a week ago, and then set it aside because I wasn't sure what your time schedule was. And so anyway, this morning I brought forward some of my ideas to him, and he suggested for me to be here. I know your time is limited, and so what I've done is just prepared a very quick outline as to some of the things that concern me. As Mr. Gordon said, I'm a planning, zoning, and economic development consultant. Been doing this for a little over 50 years. I was Director of Planning and head of the DuPage County Regional Planning Commission for 17 years. I go back, I was actually on the original design team for Paul Butler for the town of Oak Brook. So that puts my time frame a little bit. So I've done a number of new town developments. I've worked on downtown developments, just about everything you can possibly think of in the area of economic development, land use planning, and zoning. I was head of the Economic Development Commission for the City of Chicago for 5 years. So my range of experience is very broad, and I have all the appropriate degrees, which I'm not going to bother to tell you right now. After 17 years, I'm obviously very familiar with Downers Grove. We emphasized working with the communities while I was with the county for the 17 years. We prepared the first comprehensive plan for DuPage County, and it included all of the municipalities at that time. And so we worked very closely with all of the municipalities. I go back to Ken Rathje and some earlier people on your staff. So I'm fully aware of the fact that this community puts a lot of care into developing its land use plans. As you're probably aware, that is one of the factors, one of the LaSalle factors that's used in any zoning case, is the care with which a municipality has developed its land use plans. And again, as I said, you've done an excellent job through the years of doing that. Within the 17 years, I worked very closely with your staff on a number of, especially land use cases that were adjoining Downers Grove, and eventually would be annexed. And so we worked on a very good partnership. The fact that I say that you've done a good job is because I know you've put a lot of effort into the development of the downtown area. It's probably one of the most difficult things to do is to have a viable downtown area. I do a lot of work with communities that are just trying desperately to maintain their downtowns, and there's a lot of strategies that are developed to do it. The thing that I look at as a planner when I come into a community is the comprehensive plan. That's one of the first things I look at. I am a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, and consider myself to be a good one. And I'm just going to very quickly go through some of the things that I noticed in your comprehensive plan that lends itself to this particular case, and why I think there's the possibility you're making a dramatic mistake by treating this particular property as if it were a multiple family use. Your comprehensive plan states on page 26 that the subject property's location is in an area that should be developed for downtown mixed use, which is defined as a mix of commercial service, commercial retail, entertainments, civic institution, and related public facilities in a pedestrian-oriented atmosphere, with office and residential uses located on the upper floors. This is a common planning practice of most mixed-use developments that I am familiar with and have worked on. Now, I've reviewed the report of the Plan Commission dated November 3rd, 2014, and disagree with some of the comments and findings. I hope you will take my comments into consideration when you vote on this matter. I want to start with the letter from the attorney for the project dated October 14th, 2014, where again he goes out of his way to discuss the criteria for a special use ordinance. And that criteria, number one, is that the proposed use is expressly authorized as a special use in the district in which it is located. He goes on to say the proposed development is a 55-unit development, and I'll go through that, but he also refers to page 26 of the Downers Grove Comprehensive Plan, where it says that it has to be a mixed-use development, and the plan provides, in order to achieve its goals, it is recommended that the ground floor uses are primarily retail, entertainment, personal service, office, and residential uses. I noticed later that in the staff report, multiple family is introduced into that paragraph when it's not in the paragraph prepared by the attorney. He then goes on to say, with reference to the objectives of Downers Grove Comprehensive Plan, the petitioner's architect designed a plan after consultation with the staff to provide a first floor with personal service uses such as a workout room, party room, meeting rooms, and upper floor residential on the premises. These are not residential uses. These are uses directly related to the multiple family structure itself. We see that all over the Chicago metropolitan area. We just finished one in Wheaton, and most of them today all provide those kinds of services. Those are services for that. They are a part of the amenities of a multiple family structure. They have nothing to do with the mixed-use concept that is in your comprehensive plan. Special attention was provided to provide indoor parking. Everybody has to do that. Petitioner believes that the plan is expressly authorized as a special use pursuant to the comprehensive plan. I mean, that is a false statement. The comprehensive plan clearly states over and over again what a mixed-use development is. When I went to the report by the Plan Commission, again, it talks about the fact that this is, the existing zoning is DB, downtown business, talks about the types of uses surrounding it on every side, whether it's to the north, it's DB, downtown business, to the south, to the east, and to the west. And the future land use plan requires on all four sides of the subject property that it be downtown mixed use. And again, the definition in the comprehensive plan is that it has to be carried out by having commercial on the ground floor. The proposed development, again, talks about the being, in terms of its location, that it's adjacent to the village's parking deck. That's a tremendous facility in your downtown area, which shows the long-range planning and commitment to commercial development in this area of Downers Grove. Very few communities have made that kind of commitment. Wheaton is one of them, and a few others have talked about it, but you've done it. And so what I'm constantly stressing here is that there has been, as long as I can remember, a long-range plan to maintain the viability and the credibility of this downtown area. Again, in this report by the Plan Commission, it says the first floor of the building includes resident amenities. It states right there that there's no chance that any of these facilities will be available to the general public or will add to the continuity in the residential, in the commercial district. I've done literally hundreds of plans, and many for downtown areas, and what you try to do, and that's why you have a permitted use list that lists the kind, you put offices on the second floor in most ordinances, and you do in yours also, because there's a shopping network that takes place. You want shoppers to walk along and get enticed into various stores, similar to the pattern that has taken place in shopping centers. So that pedestrian continuity is very important. And to break it up with the entire frontage of this structure, plus a loading area and a large parking area, just disrupts that entire pattern that a pedestrian-oriented plan is calling for. And you'll see that wording again and again in your comprehensive plan. The report goes on to talk about the compliance with the comprehensive plan, and this is what amazed me more than anything. The report says, and this is from the Plan Commission, the comprehensive plan identifies the subject property as being within the downtown and mixed-use future land use. Downtown is characterized by a mix of service, retail, multiple family, I don't know how that got in there, residential, entertainment and civic uses, because as I understand your town, I've driven around it, you've put your multiple family, like most communities, surrounding the downtown area so people can walk to the downtown area and not plunk it down within the middle of your downtown area. And it goes on to say the comprehensive plan recommends downtown developments that maintain the pedestrian orientation, which this use being put right in the middle of the commercial walkway does not do. Ground floor uses that are retail, service, or entertainment, which this doesn't do. It's an amenity package and a garage for the building. It has nothing to do with shopping. And it says the upper floor uses that are residential. Yeah, we know that. The upper floors, the whole thing is residential. And then it goes on to say the proposed condominium development meets these recommendations. I don't know how they can say that when not one of them has been met. The petitioner has created buildings that provides a pedestrian orientation through the use of the outdoor terrace. It's a very narrow little landscaped area, allowing automobile access to private property. These things have nothing to do with the general public. They serve only the residents of the building. So again, in terms of their stating that the residential policy recommendation in the comprehensive plan notes that future multifamily development should be located near significant activity centers. It doesn't say within. What you're doing is you're taking a multiple family structure and plunking it down within your neighborhood commercial district. Furthermore, the comprehensive plan encourages multifamily development to be located in areas where it can function as a transitional zone. I don't see how this can work as a transition. When I talk about transitions, I think of the first property maybe behind a commercial development where you have an alley or something of that nature or a backup treatment. At that point, you make the transition from commercial to residential. That's the appropriate place to do it, not within the district itself. I go to the findings of fact, and I'm almost done. The petitioner is requesting the special use to construct a 55-unit condominium building. Staff finds the proposal meets the standards for granting a special use as outlined below. And here's the first standard. No special use may be recommended for approval or approved unless the respective review of the decision-making body determines that the proposed special use is, and here's the important thing, consistent with and in substantial compliance with the village council policies and plans. That's the adopted comprehensive plan that the city council adopted. And that the applicant has presented evidence in support of each of the following conclusions. So there's no doubt in my mind that this proposal is contrary to the plan, that comprehensive plan that's on record and you have developed. The zoning ordinance implements the comprehensive plan. That leads me to some concerns about how the zoning ordinance provision is handled. Number one, that the proposed use is expressly authorized as a special use in the district in which it is to be located. The property is listed in the DB Downtown Business District zoning. Under Section 5.010 of the zoning ordinance, condominium residential is listed as an allowable special use in the DB zoning district. The standard has been met. The word condominium is there to allow for the condominiums to be above the second floor as part of the policy of the comprehensive plan. You can't just arbitrarily dismiss the comprehensive plan and say, oh, we're going to put residential all over the place. And I'll get to where you have a precedent-setting problem at this point. Two, the proposed use at the proposed location is necessary or desirable to provide a service or facility that is in the interest of the public convenience, etc. The problem is, the staff, or the report says, the proposed condominium development will meet various comprehensive plan goals, which I've pounded away now that it doesn't, to provide a diversity of housing types, sizes, and prices while providing multiple family development near. Interesting that even your own wording in the plan says near the downtown, not in the downtown. That's a very, very important word right there in that sentence. It doesn't say in. It says it should be near the downtown, and that's what all practicing planners do. You identify what you think is a supportable commercial area, and then you ring it with multiple family development to provide additional people to go to the various commercial uses. I mean, this is a concept that's been around for years. And the third one is the proposed use will not, in a particular case, be detrimental to the public health and safety. Again, the text goes on to say that the condominium development will convert 2 vacant properties into multiple family housing. They're vacant because the developer bought them and vacated them, we think. But these are, one of them is a business and one is a historic structure, all of which are uses that make use of a downtown area. Now I get down to the precedent. What you will do tonight, if you vote for this, is that every property in the downtown area that wants to convert to 100% multiple family is going to come in here and say, you did it on this property. You allowed, under a special use, a 5-story total multiple family structure within the business district. And slowly but surely, what happens anytime you take a piece of property and you turn it 100% into one use, there is no doubt what happens, and that's why some of the citizens are concerned. The intensity goes up. The land use intensity of that structure, because you can design it from the footprint up 5 stories for all practical purposes, you maximize intensity and density, and that relates into traffic movements and everything else. The minute you have to design this structure as the comprehensive plan recommends, as a mixed use, you get an entirely different footprint because you're going to have commercial, you're going to have service areas, you're going to have parking, which is laid out differently, because you can't combine the commercial and the residential normally. So there is a definite advantage to the developer to do a 100% multiple-family building to increase the intensity. That won't happen if it's a mixed-use building, and I have to assume your comprehensive plan took that into consideration to protect the scale and the massing in the downtown area. I do believe that that is probably, of all the things, I mean, going against your own comprehensive plan is bad enough, but now setting this precedent that will allow every remaining parcel in the DB area to become 100% multiple family is the precedent that I think you have to really give some real concern to. So I would hope that you would consider that and take that into your deliberations, and hopefully maybe send this thing back to the drawing board to be developed the way the comprehensive plan recommends for the subject property. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Abel. Other questions or comments from the audience with respect to the requested special use? Please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. Certainly, it's hard for any planner.
If I could just ask you again.
For the record, David Sasson on behalf of the developer. It's hard for any planner after 9 hours of testimony to come in the morning before and give you a complete picture. Mr. Abel, we didn't buy this property and throw anybody out. It was two foreclosed properties from a bank that have been vacant for a long period of time. Your comprehensive plan, you can all read. Everybody can read it. It's very clear. To have a viable downtown, you need people. This area was rezoned 50 years ago, and the commercial has always struggled in the downtown areas of suburbia where there's no people. The parking deck is an important part of this, and it went up, but even that didn't spur the development because you need people. Everybody is not coming in here when we put up a condominium building, because this is a unique piece, and things have to fit on properties in order to be developed. There are 13 parcels on the south end of the Downers Grove downtown area, and this is one of the pieces that may be suited for residential development. Other pieces may not be. But the most important part of your plan recognizes that in order to spur development, in order to spur a viable downtown, and your plan makes reference to the viability of the downtown, you have to have people. We brought in a first-class building that meets every aspect of the code and the comprehensive plan. You can try and twist the plan and go to pages of the plan and pick out a word of the plan, but it's the clear intent that an important part of the comprehensive plan that's missing on this downtown area is the residential development. That's the component that we've sought to bring. And to say that every piece would require retail on the first floor, that every piece would have mixed use, that's not what the plan contemplates at all. It contemplates a mix in the area, and certainly this brings one part of the mix that's missing. It's very hard to walk in at the end, but you have to have the facts.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the audience on this matter? Good evening.
Good evening. Bill White, 4729 Cecilia Avenue. As I've looked through all of this, I find myself with a sense of deja vu. It was maybe 7 years ago, I came before this village council, and many of you are different now, looked you in the eye and said that I thought the planning process concerning the Fairview Village application at Lindgren Court was flawed, that we're putting the cart before the horse. It was piecemeal and not looked at holistically. As I review all of the planning documents for this application, as I said, I have a sense of deja vu. I see tunnel vision. You're looking at this parcel only outside of the larger context. The reason that I advocated for a comprehensive plan back in 2006, 2007, was that we needed to have a holistic look. There's one essential and vital piece of information you do not have yet, which is what is the total number of multifamily units downtown can absorb. That's a finite number. And is this the best location for multifamily in the downtown district? Because this project will preclude the development of multifamily at other locations in downtown simply by market conditions. I read today in the paper that Lyle is looking to build 200 units by their train station. So the question is, this council does not have all of the information they need to make a quality decision because you're looking at this not in the context of the entire development of downtown from a comprehensive perspective. You're looking at paint by number, check off the boxes, looking at it from a pigeonhole point of view. And that's precisely what you were doing wrong in 2007 with the Lynn-Bremer Fairview Village application, and you're doing exactly the same thing wrong now, and the whole comprehensive plan is just being ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the audience with respect to the proposed special use? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, staff. Bill Wolbeck, 1409 Willard Place. I'm going to start out by saying I oppose the development on Maple Avenue. Last week, one of the residents referenced a Joni Mitchell song and used the words paves paradise and put up a parking lot. Actually, I thought he was going to use another line, you don't know what you got till it's gone. If when he introduced that song, some of you, probably the older members, might recall that line immediately, your subconscious is telling you that you should really deny the special use. Let's see where we are. We found out that our historic preservation ordinance is neither historic and preserves nothing. Nothing new, but the Planning Commission can routinely approve bad development, which makes planning kind of a misnomer at times. Also, for the council members, have prepared special use as the final bastion of common sense that preserves the right of the council to act on behalf of the community in avoiding bad, unwanted development. Guess that's no longer the case. The people at Downers Grove are to be victimized by developers and are powerless. So the council members would have us believe. Let's look at special use. Does this use comply with the comprehensive plan? No. The petitioner thinks so, but there have been comments on the other side. Depends on who you want to side with, developers or residents. Does this use adversely affect the safety of the neighborhood? Sufficient evidence suggests that the neighborhood and those passing through this street would be adversely affected. You could decide with the residents, or you could go with the traffic study bought and paid for by the petitioner who was able to shop around. Does this project affect property values? You've heard from many residents that this project would adversely affect property values. These people are not just residents, but they are also judges of whether this project is a plus, a market, if you will. And if they say it adversely affects our town and Maple Avenue, then there must be something to it. With all the failed and incomplete projects in the area, how does this addition even meet the economic smell test? If we were to believe the economic impact of the petitioner, the village might gain $50,000 in taxes, which I estimated 10% by what they said the property taxes might be. But common sense indicates that the village plan to sell property for Village Hall project could lose much more, even make the plan unworkable. The difference be paid by the taxpayer. Property values are about the future, so conjecture is valid. It is the future impact that might be considered, and council can side with the residents or with the developer. Lastly, we know that this project is not necessary, but the question is whether it is desirable. When this many residents, and many of them are not NIMBYs, and a petition that size that you've been given, you have to take note. All projects can be considered desirable because the petitioner always desires their projects. But the requirement assumes that it is desirable by the residents. Funny how councils determine our favorability numbers. If a council member wants to side with the residents at the meetings, they comment on the terrific support and the turnout. If the council member disagrees with the resident gallery, then they start referencing the other 49,000. Funny how that works. Fact is that most of the 49,000 are ineligible to vote, with a large number not knowing or caring. If looking for validity, how many council members have garnered more than 3,500 votes in any election? And that includes even me. That means about 25,000 residents didn't vote for you and are likely not to vote for you in the future. Maybe 30 or 40 have spoken. That easily outnumbers 7. As far as the property rights go, if the special use is not granted, the petitioner can probably walk away. This development is too large, inappropriate. Granting special use will also make other inappropriate projects harder to stop, the precedent that was previously mentioned. Maple Avenue is a village gem. Granting special use will be the beginning of a domino effect that will ruin this gem. Each of you will be known as part of the council responsible for the destruction, and some future council may be asked to rename Maple Avenue to Wall Street because of the overdevelopment. Your choice, residents or developers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience on this item, 8A, the ordinance authorizing special use?
I don't want to cut anyone off, but is it my turn again?
I don't see anyone else rising to speak, so if you
All right.
have some more to say, Dr. Goodman.
Gordon Goodman, 5834 Midaw. And the comments that I was going to make relate to themes that have already been introduced. In particular, one of the questions that was asked at a previous meeting and to which the council response replied, the question, I believe, was where in the comprehensive plan is the recommendation for transition zoning, for revising the boundaries of the downtown business, downtown transition districts. That's a theme that I played before that I think is necessary, and the manager answered that there is no specific recommendation of that sort in the comprehensive plan. My analysis is that you're getting a very strong recommendation about transition zoning around, or transition uses around the downtown area in general and in Maple Avenue in particular. You have 733 recommendations for that now from the various people who have supported the petition that you've received requesting that you deny this special use petition. And the basic theme that represents is that the comprehensive plan was drawn up by technical experts. They gave you certain policies that they thought were very forward-looking for the community and would support the kind of vibrant downtown area that Mr. Abel said has been the traditional goal of the village. And the controversy about this particular development has gotten a lot more people to pay attention to that comprehensive plan and to the look and feel of Downers Grove, and particularly Maple Avenue, than normally do that in the course of their commuter or grandparenting life, whatever they're doing as their principal function. They really don't have time to study planning documents and pay attention to what's going on at the council level. But this controversy has certainly stirred up a good deal of interest. Not quite as much as Lyman Woods did when I was young and frisky, but I don't do quite as much troublemaking as I used to. On the other hand, people are paying attention now. They're looking at their community. They're saying, well, how can we keep it the way we want it? How can we make it grow in the way that we think is desirable? And so you're getting very strong recommendations from your constituents. And this has gone on now for a month or more. You're getting continuous recommendations. During this period, nominating petitions were filed for various members of the current council and various other community members. And if the sort of recommendations you've been getting by orderly petition and by people coming and trying to give you polite discourse in meetings isn't sufficient, I guess the only thing left is to wait until April. But I'm quite sure that positions that people take in this election are going to be important in developing the policies on which the residents are going to decide. And I'm not surprised that a couple non-incumbent candidates are appearing to stake out their positions here. That's what public issues do. They polarize the community and they result in elected officials who are sensitive to their constituents. That's the turn of remarks that I wanted to make tonight. I think we've analyzed in great detail in previous meetings. I think Mr. Abel was able to sum up in an excellent fashion the thrust of the analysis that you've received, and I'm still hoping that you might have heard enough that you want to consider and postpone the decision on this matter until 2015. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Buben. Good evening.
Hi, Marjorie, 4720 Florence Avenue. You all know me because you've appointed me to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And when I was appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals way back in 2007, I didn't know anything about zoning. And I made it a point to get myself educated and to go and become a member of the American Planning Association, study, continue to learn what good planning is. And one of the really important things that we do on the Zoning Board of Appeals on behalf of the entire community is that we have to make hard decisions about things that could very well set a precedent for the entire town. And we look to see if there's some special reason that this, whatever the exception being granted is being granted. So I would like you just to think very carefully, because we sit up there every month and make those hard decisions, sometimes for, sometimes against, but we always go to the site and look at it and take it very seriously, from a sign to a fence to a garage or whatever the application may be about. Setting a precedence when you open that door, when you say yes, I guarantee you 5 come in right after it and say, but you've just said yes to that last one. And they try to twist whatever it is to fit. you have to have a clear idea of what that comprehensive plan says. You have to have a clear idea of what the definition of downtown zoning is. You have to have a clear definition of what mixed use is in the downtown. And I believe Mr. Abel gave you that tonight. And I would just caution you to be very, very certain before you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Other questions or comments from the audience with respect to the motion on the table to authorize a special use? Good evening.
Good evening, Hillary Dent, 433 Wilson Street. First, I want to thank you. A number of council members have spoken to me individually, and I appreciate the additional information I've received. I also appreciate the responses by the village regarding an issue that I've raised a number of times relating to this project, which is the loading zone on the Parkway. I think, first of all, I want to state that I believe that this testimony given by Mr. Abel this evening does give you a basis to deny this special use permit. I also believe that the people of this village have made it clear that this is not a desirable project in our village, and again, that would be a very good basis to deny this permit. The facts have been put forward about the desirability of additional, or the facts about the necessity of additional condo units in our village, and I believe that's a basis to deny this permit. I know that there is some case law that interprets special use in your zoning ordinances. The City of Chicago Heights versus Living Word Outreach Full Gospel Church and Ministries, Inc. I believe this case law supports the denial on all three of those bases. If you choose not to deny this permit tonight, I request that you add conditions to the permit. One of those conditions, based upon Mr. Abel's comments and actually comments that I've made earlier also relating to the comprehensive plan and the mixed use issue, which I've asked about in the past and was told, oh, it didn't say mixed use anywhere. It was always residential. And I thank Mr. Abel for pointing out where I saw that mixed use. I wasn't a crazy person. So I think that there should be a condition put on the special use permit that there would be commercial on the first floor. I think that is consistent with our downtown. I don't know of any other residential condo complexes in our downtown area without commercial on the first floor. And I think that that makes perfect sense. If you're going to have business zoning, that you should have business on the first floor. So I think that should be a condition of the special use permit. Another condition of the special use permit, I believe, should be loading and unloading on the private property of this complex. There should not be any loading or unloading on our parkway. There are examples given about downtown loading zones in the answers to council's questions. All of these relate to commercial uses. They do not serve any purpose for residents. People aren't moving into their units off of, the parkway. A number of these are actually parking places. They're not on a parkway. They're actually on the street, and they are parking, and after 3 p.m., people park in them. I parked in one this weekend, right next to the library. The two next to the Tivoli, people are parking in those tonight. The loading zone on Rogers is off the street. There's a parkway with trees. So taking away the parking of the parkway and the trees, I think, is a safety issue, and it has not been studied. There has been no study. There's been an opinion that it's okay for pedestrians, it's okay for cars. Having a big parking van, moving van on the parkway with traffic and with people, it's a safety issue. I believe it should be made a condition of the permit that there be no loading coming off of that parkway for moving, if you can have a truck come in for your mail, then why can't you have a truck come in for FedEx and UPS and moving? You can accommodate that. You should design the building so all those functions take place on the private property, not on our public right-of-way. So those are my two requests. I think it's a safety issue. I don't think it's necessary to have that loading area. No significant impact on traffic. A large truck, the only way they're going to pull into that traffic is using a side view mirror, coming in and out. If they're coming out from under the porte cochere, they have the full windscreen, they can see everything right and left. It's much safer. This is an unsafe way to be coming in and out right on Maple Avenue. It's a very busy street. These other loading zones do not have nearly the traffic. The alley off of the library, the east-west parking deck across from Charles Place, 1013, 1015 Curtis Street. There's only, and actually you could only give us 5 examples. This is actually not a normal type of thing to do. And I frankly do not understand why our village staff thought it was okay to give up that parkway as part of this petition. I don't think that was appropriate, but I do request that that be a condition of the special use permit. The other thing I'm concerned about is that we have a survey done of historic properties, but no action taken on it. I'm concerned about a zoning code, a brand-new zoning code that is implemented, and the special use issue has not been addressed. It's a real disservice to your citizens to have the language of that special use permit and give all of us, especially at that November meeting, the hope that our opinion would matter, our opinion as residents. You gave us the hope that if we got more people involved and if people became aware and if people told you they didn't want this, that it would have an impact. And my understanding is really you can't consider that because case law says you can't. But that you need expert opinion, you need expert testimony, you need facts. And that's a disservice to the public. Now, I don't know if that's something that you need to address in the zoning code, and I don't know if the lack of action on the zoning code or on the historic district is related to staff cuts. And maybe it's related to the fact that the folks working for our village don't have enough time to consider these things and don't have the resources they need to consider these things and do a better job for us. We've been cutting staff last few years. We've been keeping our taxes flat. Maybe we need to consider some policy decisions about the services to our village and what is necessary to properly serve our village and its needs. I, for one, as a taxpayer, would appreciate some changes and some action on some of these things that people work very hard on the comprehensive plan, on the historic district, and then, or the historic survey. And I think those should be priorities. I'm dismayed that there's an agenda set at the beginning of the year and then there isn't staff to look at new issues that pop up. There isn't staff time or resources to look at things that, might be necessary to serve our village. So I think going forward, that's something to really consider and to think about. And I don't see this as some people may see this as some sort of election issue. I see this as an overall, how do we serve our public? How does our village take care of the needs of our village? How do we communicate? And I've been to these meetings and really felt that if there was enough input from your residents, that would have an impact on the special use permit. I certainly hope that I'm correct. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions and comments from members of the audience with respect to the authorization of a special use? Hearing none, I will ask for questions or comments from members of the village council.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, if I could, please, to make an amendment. I have three, if you bear with me. I move to add the following conditions to the special use pending approval. One, eliminate the Maple Avenue's loading zone. Two, move the front of the building back as far as possible within our existing code to maintain the existing physical relationship between the north side sidewalk and Maple Avenue. Three, post and ensure that all deliveries are to be made on the property post-development on the property of the development itself. No parking, loading, or standing on Maple Avenue. And three, prior to the issuance of a building permit, that the petitioner shall soften or reduce the massing of the front elevation by changing building materials, architectural features, or design at the roof lines in a manner acceptable to the village manager.
I'll second that.
Questions or comments from, we have a new motion on the table, so questions and comments from the audience with respect to the motion that's now on the table. Questions or comments from the village council? Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we clarify what exactly the setback in, I think it was amendment number 2, would be? Is that the 10-foot setback?
Under the zoning, yes, maximum 10-foot setback from the front lot line.
Okay. My next question is with regard to deliveries, and perhaps it would be easier for the petitioner to answer this. Would the elimination of the loading zone and the requirement that deliveries be made on site result in these delivery trucks backing out onto Maple Avenue? Would they have enough room to turn around?
Yes, unequivocally. This project was designed with loading and unloading and turnaround well before this idea percolated about having a loading zone on the street. The site is fully capable, the overhang is high enough, the trucks would come in and moving vans would come in, certainly, and they all can turn around and then pull straight out. That's why there is an overhang, and that's how the building was designed. Yes.
Thank you.
Just want to clarify that the 10-foot setback is measured from the new resulting lot line after the additional 3-foot right-of-way dedication. So depending on where you're looking, what set of plans you're looking at, it's 13 feet from the current front lot line or 10 feet from the new resulting front lot line after the additional 3-foot right-of-way dedication.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thanks, Mayor.
Mayor, I have a quick question for our staff. Can you please explain to us in the audience and those at home, zoning ordinance versus comprehensive plan? Which one is an ordinance by policy, which one is a guide or a plan, and how that is interpreted by not only staff, but how we should interpret it as a council?
The comprehensive plan is a guide to help make decisions. The zoning ordinance is the law that has to be followed.
Any questions on the motions on the table? The only comment I had is, and I think the motion is reflective of some information and input that we received, but I don't know about the rest of the council. I'm not able to make motions or second motions, but I would hazard that to consider what this potentially means and what its implementation would be. To decide that tonight, I'm not comfortable doing that. I would want to see what this actually means. We may need to send them a set of drawings. The public, who certainly has been here for numerous meetings and countless hours, is hearing this for the first time, and I'm not suggesting any ill consequence of that. It's just a simple observation that people haven't had time to digest it as to whether it's sufficient or it's not, or what exactly it means. So since I can't make motions and I can't second motions, I would suggest that my colleagues perhaps consider a third motion, which is tabling both of these issues until our first meeting in January to give us the opportunity not only to consider ourselves, but I think we owe the taxpayers, the voters, but also to give the people in this audience and people beyond this room who have spent many, many hours here an opportunity to absorb this and what it means. And finally, but not the least of which, to give the petitioner an opportunity to not react to this in about 30 seconds, but to have an opportunity to provide information, perhaps even some information as to what it looks like.
Mayor, I'll make that motion that we table this until the first meeting so we can get the proper information from the developer. I think that's what we've been hearing from the residents all along, or the changes and what it would look like.
So there's a motion to table both of those motions until January 6th.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion of the motion to table both of the motions until January 6th? Sorry, Commissioner?
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to hear from the developer on the amendments that I proposed. I think it's true, Mayor, they're first in official form this evening, but there's subject matter that has been kicked around quite a bit. We've seen, I think, a couple of sets of drawings even. And so we heard from Commissioner Durkin's question about moving and actual delivery vehicles. But how do you react to those issues? I guess I feel like they're pretty straightforward, and I suspect that they are not a problem, but I'd like to hear you talk about them.
With regard to the loading zone, that condition would not be a problem to us at all. The building was designed, as I indicated to Commissioner Jose, with the expectation and understanding that we would take care of our business on our property and that it would be designed accordingly. With regard to moving the building back, that again is a function of the zoning code, and it would not create a variation. And one of the things that we looked at was making that dedication to pick up another 3 feet and move it back and stay within the code to make it essentially 13 feet from where it is now. It would not change the building, it would just move it back off the sidewalk, and with the loading zone not there, of course, you could have a larger sidewalk. We don't think that any drawing, would change that at all. With regard to the building elevation, we think the elevations are probably something that our professionals can undertake and would be willing to undertake, and if there's some suggestions from your staff as to what would change in terms of, quote, softening up the look of the building, our client as the developer would certainly be happy to look at those suggestions and take that forward. We would very much like a vote. We also understand this village and this council spent so much time that zoning is a matter of comfort. We're comfortable with the conditions. We're comfortable with going ahead today. But that's certainly up to the council and up to the mayor.
I guess my reaction, Mayor, is that the conditions that are out there, which are sort of the new piece of information for this evening, if you will, that might have to be digested, are two things. They're either very plain on their face as it relates to the loading zone and where the building line is, or they are both intentionally fluid and not terribly defined, but also not necessarily consistent with requirements for special use. The issue seems to be one that the developer's expressing an interest in trying to be accommodating in an effort to sort of facilitate this. And I'm not sure that a different set of elevations would change any meaningful aspect of the consideration of the special use criteria. So I appreciate the caution. For my 2 cents as it relates to the issues I brought forward as amendments, I think they're probably sufficiently defined this evening for myself to move forward. See what the colleagues say.
Commissioner Hustat?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Commissioner Barnett. I think that we just heard from a resident tonight that had made the request to, try to work on the loading zone. And we've just essentially looked at that in this amendment made by Bob. I think that the level of engagement with our residents, especially folks in this area that have studied these plans, can probably literally picture and visualize what the setback change would look like. We're all very much in tune to this project and into this development. We've been looking at it now for a number of weeks and months. We've actually had an extra first reading on it, so we all have a very clear understanding of where and how this development would be situated on the property. So I would support moving forward this evening. I do understand the mayor's comment about trying to get more information, not only to us, to our residents, but like I said, we're extremely engaged, as are our residents. And I think these three conditions are not extreme and have been agreed upon by the petitioner.
Martin, if I may. So if this was put off until January, would you change the start date that you would like for construction, or would you keep the same date that you would want to start the project? My reason for my question is we received information from a family that is interested in trying to move the house. We don't know what will happen with that, but if this tightens that up so they can't even consider that, I'm nervous about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of the weather more than anything else, but no, regardless, the process is going to take a number of months to develop final architectural plans and final engineering and bidding, and I don't think 2 weeks, one way or the other, would change the ability to move that house. It's going to start, if that happened, it would have to happen in the spring sometime, because that's when construction starts. It's also when a foundation could be poured for that house. And winter is maybe not the time to move a house, pretty hard to do, and to get it ready, the site to move it. So it would not be an impediment. We're not going to, I believe, by resolving this tonight, change the landscape for what happens with the house. I think the house will be determined whether it's feasible and economic to do that.
Of course, I just didn't want this decision to delay to cause another decision to not happen.
No, it would not, no.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jose?
Thank you, Mayor. Does the condition that the building be located at the maximum setback change the plans that were proposed here? Because it looks to me, looking at the drawing, and I know you probably don't have it right in front of you, but that the building is already set back the entire 10 feet in addition to the 3-foot right-of-way. So it seems to me that this wouldn't change anything in terms of the plans that have been presented. Is that correct?
Right. The 10 feet is the maximum, and to stay in the code, we set it back. We could have put it right on the street, because that's permitted, or a portion of, no, we set it back already, anticipating that it go back as far as it could. So it would not really change the plan.
All right, thank you.
It kind of picks up on, I'm sorry, Commissioner Olson, go ahead.
If you wanted to comment on that one, I was just going to...
Right, we're just on the motion.
Motion to table.
To approve and the motion to amend the motion to approve until a date certain being January 6th.
January 6th. I just wanted to note that I do support the motion to table. I think that, I appreciate that the petitioner has been able to respond very quickly to this, but clearly this is new information to the folks here, to the folks watching at home, and I think that it behooves us as part of this process to allow them the chance to understand this, to digest it, to ask questions, and before we vote on it tonight. So I would support the motion to table.
I was just going to, go ahead.
Yeah, just point of clarification, we threw out January 6th. Is that feasible, considering we have the holiday here, to get drawings, updated drawings, or does January 13th work better for you?
Probably would work better. If the council determined it probably would work better. It's hard to speak for the professionals and to commit to that.
You don't have to speak for you said the 13th, that's fine.
He said another week would be welcome.
Yeah, fine. I don't have an objection.
We'll consider that a friendly amendment to your motion, Commissioner. Date certain being January 13th.
Do we want to set a date certain, or do we want to just have it tabled to the next appropriate meeting? I think the manager's got some for us.
Can I ask a clarifying question of the draft condition that was placed? The draft condition reads, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the plan shall be amended. Is it the intent of the council and the motion maker to see revised plans as part of continued discussion, or is it the intent that that be part of the administrative process that happens after?
It was the intent of the motion maker that that be part of the administrative process that happens afterwards.
Then they won't need new plans.
Yeah, the motion maker doesn't want to try and necessarily legislate architectural design, rather encourage as much massaging as petitioner and our staff feel like they can do to soften things up, that's all. It's not a matter of the motioner seeing a particular drawing and saying yea or nay.
I'll just weigh in on the motion to table both these motions to a date certain to be determined. And that is, and I appreciate the clarification from the MoveOn as well as others, that the proposed conditions are really, I think it was one word was not extreme, and the others were described as sort of cosmetic. So if they're really not changing the project at all, then maybe we don't need more time. But part of the reason why I asked for the time was to fully understand, and perhaps I'm not as quick to grasp what's now been explained, that these are really just cosmetic changes that don't fundamentally change the project at all. And then maybe we don't need more time, but I understood it to be, I was thinking these were conditions that were designed to try to fit this within the special use requirements. And if they're more cosmetic, then perhaps we don't need them. Or we don't need the additional time.
Yeah.
Do you entertain public comment on the motion to
Yes.
delay?
I just wanted to kind of get squared away here amongst ourselves first, so we know what people are commenting on.
But I have a comment. If we're,
This is why I wanted to wait.
yeah, I mean, I think it was number,
Sorry, I apologize.
go ahead.
No, please.
You know, I think it was the bullet point number 3 that Commissioner Barnett had mentioned, revising the drawings of the building with architectural, whatever you had stated, and that would be under the decision of the manager. I mean, if we're going to change drawings, that's what's got my attention. That's what I want to see. That's a visual. You know, is it going to change the building itself? Yeah, it's going to change the building. One of the concerns I have is this, the height. I mean, maybe architecturally, drawings or whatever they're going to do to make it look smaller. I don't know, but that's why I do support this tabling.
Commissioner?
If I could go back to the move-on, I suppose. It didn't sound to me like the condition was intended to change the actual height of the structure, is that right?
When we engage in the process that we're in tonight, which is, you know, kind of a zoning hearing, if you will, we all learn something every time we do that. And one of the things we're experiencing here is sort of a first application of existing zoning law. We know we can't change that midstream, and I think everyone in the room, frankly, I think if I remember correctly, even the petitioner mentioned early on that this wasn't their first design of love. So there are some challenges that we are all struggling to find a way to work within. And so what that was an attempt at adding a condition to the special use that would cause the developer's team and our team to work at trying to, it's that simple, soften it up. The standards that were in front of us consider safety, which I frankly think the sidewalk and moving and loading zone and loading process addresses. They also consider the welfare of the neighborhood and the character of the neighborhood, and it's to that end that I think our staff and the petitioner should be given some direction from us to try and soften things up. It does not, in my motion, was not intended to materially change the building in terms of square footage or height or number of units or any of that kind of stuff. It was an attempt at recognizing that what we've got in front of us is something that probably ought to go forward and is a little bit stunning to all of us. And so that's it.
Thank you.
I appreciate the clarification as well. While we're thinking about that, question from the audience with respect to the motion to table both motions on the table to a date certain, and we'll have to make sure we pick a meeting where we have council participation as well as the other schedules that are involved here. It may not be the 6th or the 13th.
I'm Gordon Goodman, 5834 Middaw, and my question and comment is related to the part of the condition that deals with eliminating the loaning zone and requiring all deliveries to occur on the property of the development. And the suggestion from our planning and zoning expert is that the village needs to be able to study diagrams of this internal part of the property with the turning radiuses for various dimensions of trucks and other service vehicles, including emergency vehicles from the village, such as fire trucks, indicated so that you can understand the significance of that. The petitioner certainly said that the project didn't need the zoning, the loading zone from its original design, but as far as I know, the village has not seen turning radius diagrams for the internal structure of the project. If you haven't, that is something that I believe you need to evaluate in order to understand the significance of Commissioner Barnett's condition.
We have seen those diagrams and drawings, and in fact, it was the staff recommendation to add the loading zone after we've already reviewed those things, and we concur with the statements made by the petitioner that there is ample room for delivery trucks to turn around.
Early in the process, I personally attended with our entire development staff a meeting in this building with your entire development staff. These plans were reviewed. Turning radiuses are a vital part of any plan. They're looked at right away. The fire department looks at these buildings, and your fire department looked at these buildings to say, how do we service them? What kind of equipment goes in them? Delivery trucks are looked at. Public Works looks at it and makes suggestions. All of that has been done, and it was done months ago. And when we walked out of the original meeting, we had just a list of suggestions and plans from your entire, all of your village departments, which is how planning is done. So it's been done. I appreciate Mr. Goodman's input that it should be done. It's been done a long time ago, and that's why I can speak with confidence when I tell you that we know that it determines work, and we know what we can fit underneath that overhang. The loading zone was an afterthought that we thought would be okay. In hindsight, it's caused a lot more discussion than we ever thought it would, but any proposal is certainly worthy of dissection before it's enacted, and it's not an inherent part of our project. As far as the building, what we would contemplate from the motion is that we're looking at the cosmetic appearance of the elevation of the building and tweaking that. We would not envision taking that building and changing any substantial, since we've done a great deal of work to make sure this building complies with the code in every aspect. Certainly cosmetics can be done, and we can do that with the staff and revisit the design criteria that are in your downtown plan, and those would be the changes that I would contemplate hopefully on a staff level. I can't imagine this council wants to get into evaluating architectural plans.
That's exactly, now that I'm hearing the conversation, one, the proposed changes do sound awfully cosmetic and don't really change the fundamental project that's still on the table. But number two, even if we are going to do that, I'm reminded of the parable about the committee that tries to design a horse and comes up with a camel. I'm a little concerned about trying to redesign this on the fly, and I'm sure the village manager wants to be the one that's completely 100% responsible for the way this building looks when it's all unveiled at the end of the day. I have some trepidation about that, but I understand I understand the thinking behind it. So we're still taking comments on the motion to table, the underlying motion to approve, and then the motion to amend the motion to approve the special use with the articulated conditions. Questions from the audience on the motion to table? Or comments?
Doug Porter, 704 Maple Avenue. I would support the motion to table. I think the question that I have a concern over is one that's not in the proposal right now or being looked at. I brought it up in the planning meeting and had an engineer speak to the water runoff and how much water this building is going to shed. And basically we were told, look, we've got engineers, they've put some green space in, they have a water abatement system. But I don't think the water abatement system is as sophisticated as some of the projects that have been run in the community. I mean, we've spent $20 million on water abatement. We've spent $60 million on the underpass at Belmont. Phenomenal engineering that went into that. And at the end of the day, the heavy rain made it a swimming pool.
It was actually something the county did, but that's another story.
Yeah, but you get my point, and you know, you highlight it in your 2012 report, feat of engineering, phenomenal effort, and I just worry that a fairly impervious structure, and even with the green zone that they're talking about, it would render the water abatement in that facility basically ineffective if it rains for several days before a big event. And if we just take the April 2013 flood with, 6+ inches of rain across a 24-hour period, that water is going to shed 180,000 gallons of water. Now, to give you a visual of that, just envision 26 tanker trucks end to end. That's like a 1,300-gallon pipeline of water. Where are you going to put it? Well, gravity's going to find a home for it. And it's going to be down on the other end of Maple, where that swimming pool was last April, and we don't need it. So I think it's bigger than this project. I think we, as a community, need to build infrastructure that can support the type of development you're trying to take on. And I just haven't heard a thing about that it's a concern to anyone, unless you're one of the 1,500 people that had a business or a home flooded. And I just think it's disingenuous to sit in here and talk about the difference between a 500 square foot facility on your home versus a 700 square foot addition on your home, and whether you're going to shed water on your neighbor, when we're talking about 43,000 square feet of impervious property here, what's going to throw water like there's no tomorrow. And we don't have a way of dealing with that. And it's no fault to them for what they're putting forward, it's just a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Still taking questions or comments from the audience on the motion to table. Haven't even got to the other two yet.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm Lillian Moats, and I live at 1100 Maple. I'm very much in favor of tabling till sometime in January, and I appreciate Councilman Burnett's motions, but I would like to see the time between now and the 13th, or whatever that date is going to be, for council members to really delve into some of the concerns brought up tonight by Mr. Abel in particular about how this can be considered a mixed-use building, and the concern of the spokesperson from the planning commissioner, who was very, very concerned about the precedent that this would set. So I'm in favor of taking more time, but not only to consider Mr. Barnett's motions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The nice thing about more time is it allows you to choose what you do with it. Motion to table.
The engineering approval is a condition precedent to a hearing before your plan commission. Plans are submitted by the engineers to the sanitary district that provided for stormwater management in accordance with their requirements, the county's requirements, and the code. Those plans were approved, and in fact, right now, there's really no stormwater management on this property. It will be fully engineered with stormwater management and necessary holdback of water in the facilities on the property as a requirement of both the county and the district. We're now bringing in issues that not only have been vetted over and over again, but now new issues coming in. We consider Mr. Abel a citizen testifying. The hearing was before the Plan Commission. This body took other testimony. Somebody shows up at the last night that picked this up this morning. There has to be, we believe, some balance between the petitioner and all the work we've done and comments that just come in. All the information is there. There's hundreds of pages of documents that have been submitted. We certainly are accepting of the amendment in good faith, and as we have acted in good faith. But I'm certain, Mayor, that the minds of the people that are in favor of this project, and we believe there are many of them in the village, and the people who are opposed to it are not going to change. The comprehensive plan's not going to change, and the code's not going to change. Certainly, our elevations may have some cosmetic changes to it, but we feel that we've provided all the information and an economic study that isn't even required in the code at great cost to our client to give this body all the information that they felt they needed prior to making a decision. Whatever the sense of the council is, we certainly would abide by.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the table to table both the underlying motion to approve the special use, which was on our active agenda tonight as item 8A, as well as Commissioner Barnett's motion to amend item 8A to include the three articulated conditions. Order of precedence dictates that we take the motion to table up first. Is there any other questions or comments on that before I ask for a roll call?
Do we need to determine the date?
That's a good question. Do we need to determine a date certain?
We see how the motion to table goes. If it passes, then we can pick a date.
You know, obviously, the intent is to pick the soonest practicable date to revisit this.
Just to be clear, if we move to table this item, the previous two motions then are also...
That's the motion that's on the table, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So I went through it again. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Nay.
Commissioner Rankin?
Nay.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Commissioner Newstad?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The motion to table fails 4-3. So that then brings us to the motion to amend the motion to authorize a special use, which is item 8A. So now I'll go back to that and ask if there are any questions or comments in the audience with respect to the motion to amend. The motion to table has been defeated. Are there any questions or comments with respect to the motion to amend? Questions or comments from the council on the motion to amend? Sorry, Commissioner Olson?
I don't oppose these conditions. However, my concern on these conditions, I think The setback condition is no change. The elimination of the loading zone is a slight change, and the softening of the massing, I would have preferred if we would have been able to review that further and allow some additional community input. Given that we've not had the time to fully vet these changes and fully consider them, I won't be supporting them.
Other questions or comments on the motion to amend? I'll just add that with respect to the loading zone, I have no problem with that condition. Setback, I don't have a problem with the setback. If you're going to do it, might make some more room. I do have a problem with the condition of prior to issuance of the building permit, the petitioner shall reduce the massing of the front elevation by changing building materials, architectural features, and/or design of the roof lines in a manner acceptable to the village manager. I don't take issue with the intention behind that language. I take issue with the implementation of it. I think that we'll end up designing a camel when we're trying to make a horse. And not saying there's not another condition that might solve my concern, but that's not what's on the table right now. I also have an issue with sort of leaving it in the village manager or his designee's hands to decide that Mr. Fieldman isn't perfectly capable of making some really brilliant choices. I don't think it's the proper way to handle the issue. Particularly, I'm not even sure how that would work in terms of public input and public review. Without that being worked out, and I'm not saying it can't be worked out, just that's not what's on the table. So that's a condition I have a problem with.
Can he modify his condition, or is that?
Well, that was going to be my question, is whether the mayor had a suggestion as to how we might modify.
No, I don't, and that's the problem. I would want to give it some mindful thought. And again, I'm not sure anyone would necessarily wish to be in the spot of having to come up with that legislation on the fly, given the importance of this issue. Number two, trying to anticipate what the building will look like without actually drawing the building. I have some concerns with it. So can I articulate words that will tell you exactly what the building would look like in a fashion we can all agree to? I don't think I'm capable of doing that. I would say there's probably no one in this room that's capable of doing that. I think we would need to see prior designs. We would need to see how it fits into the neighborhood. Not trying to be overly difficult about it, but for the benefit of the broader audience, we did see renderings, we saw 3D renderings, we saw flyovers, we saw lots of things that allowed folks to see what this would mean. If these are truly cosmetic, then maybe it doesn't matter, but I just don't, there may be a way to do it. I'm not presently able to articulate what the language would be. So it's not that I disagree with the good intention behind the condition, it's just its current manifestation.
And Mayor, I think I concur with your comments. I think the idea of these conditions being proposed and voted upon tonight is the major concern. And while we also have not had a chance to fully vet them, neither has the public, to give maybe perhaps some additional suggestions. So,
right. Well, right, and it may be if we're eventually going to get to the actual special use, if it goes forward. I'm not saying that these things might not be helpful. Maybe I'm being a word snob in terms of the language.
Not a word snob, Mayor. I think, though, that what you're struggling with is exactly why, frankly, I put it the way I did. About the last thing I think is useful for anybody is to have this group trying to figure out which drawing they like better than the other drawing. There's every reason to believe our petitioner has acted in good faith on many issues to this point, some of them which have made the dais, others which have fallen by the wayside. But there's every reason to believe that they'll take an honest run at trying to soften this thing. There's every reason to believe our staff has demonstrated the ability to work with developers on a host of fronts over many years and likely can work something out. I guess the question that's important, I think, and the reason why I think this is entirely appropriate to move forward without it being sufficiently defined or vetted through the public is that if there's a aesthetic change to the building, it doesn't materially change the question about special use. This is taking an opportunity to use the special use vehicle and the good faith of the petitioner to try and make it maybe a little better, but maybe not. I mean, that may end up being the result, is that it can't find a better spot aesthetically. But I don't want to be the aesthetic police, and it's not material to the question of the use. That's exactly why I set it up the way I did.
And to that point, if the condition is, and again, assuming if it goes through, the condition is that village staff will have the ability to make it look better in terms of cosmetic suggestions, it's hard to argue with that.
The village staff is just going to, nod at whatever the architect comes back with and say, yeah, that helps, or no, that doesn't really help. That's what's going to happen.
If that's really what the intent of the condition is, again, it being cosmetic, I don't know if it's all that material to begin with. So if it has any benefit, fine. Question whether it has any benefit, which is the next motion we'll get to. Any other questions or comments on the motion to amend? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Motion to amend, Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Nay.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. So now the motion to approve, the motion to authorize a special use to permit a residential condominium development in the downtown business zoning district at 936-942 Maple Avenue. Item 8A is now back on the table as amended with the three conditions articulated by Commissioner Barnett. I think in all fairness, supplemented by the conversation we had in terms of what was intended and what it means.
Message received and reflected in the record.
Any further questions or comments on the amended motion? Commissioner Olson, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to thank all the residents who have taken the time to speak here, to attend any of the past 3 council meetings, to write to us via email, to write to us via an old-fashioned letter, to sign the petition. It's truly appreciated. Feedback and comments that this council has received has been unprecedented from both the immediate neighbors as well as from residents from throughout Downers Grove. I can't count how many emails we have received. And while I know this issue is multifaceted, I appreciate the efforts of most residents and the petitioner to address the central question posed to this council tonight, which is, does the proposal meet the criteria outlined in the zoning ordinance for a special use? Based on the facts presented throughout this process and after much thoughtful consideration of all the evidence presented, I believe it does not. Specifically, I do not believe the proposal meets the standard, quote, that the proposed use at the proposed location is necessary or desirable to provide a service or a facility that is in the interest of public convenience and will contribute to the general welfare of the neighborhood or community. Nor do I believe does it meet the standard that the proposed use will not, in the particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of persons residing or working in the vicinity, or be injurious to property values or improvements in the vicinity. After careful evaluation of these criteria, I cannot support this proposed special use. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with David that we've had a lot of comments on this, both in favor and against. I actually was emailing somebody from Texas today on this issue, which I thought was interesting, a former Downers Grove resident still paying very close attention to what we do here in town. It was important to read and understand and look at all those emails. I tried to respond to everybody, so there's probably a lot of faces in this audience that we talked electronically, but now we get to talk live. Mayor, I have just a few comments, and then I'll get into how I feel about the special use. I think it's important to note a little bit of the history of this project. We touched on it earlier that there's been multiple attempts to try to save or move the historic house as part of this project. I know Commissioner Barnett, as well as our village staff, has worked with a couple of different avenues to try to move this house, and we have certainly facilitated that to the best of our abilities, and I thank them for that extra work, as well as the petitioner, so I won't leave you out of that conversation. We heard tonight a lot about our comprehensive plan and our zoning ordinance. One of the things that I look at is that our comp plan is a guide. Our zoning ordinance is the law that we must follow. Those two designations are very important when we're reviewing these items, and land use cases and zoning cases are always the biggest issues that we face here in the village. It does lay out the future for our village. It's very important that we follow the guidelines and criteria that are set forth in our ordinance. Interestingly enough, our zoning ordinance was passed by this council, I believe unanimously, just in June of this year. And in that zoning ordinance, the bulk requirements, the setbacks, the size, the heights, the everythings that we're talking about this parcel, of which the petitioner has met to the law, no extra variations have been sought for this petition, have been asked for, was approved and passed by this village council. We're on to the special use criteria. Is this an allowed special use? Yes, I believe it is listed on the special use list, so that criteria is met. Is it necessary or desirable, or offers public convenience or does it, let me read this the right way so I don't get it screwed up here. Number 2, the proposed use at the proposed location is necessary or desirable to provide a service or a facility that is in the interest of public convenience and will contribute to the general welfare of the neighborhood and community. I feel it does meet that standard. We've heard from multiple people that have been interested in maybe purchasing one of these condos. We've heard from our Downtown Management Corporation. We've heard from our Economic Development Corporation. We've had a private economic interest study. They've all indicated a positive impact on not only the downtown, people equal vibrance in my opinion, to our downtown, but also our Economic Development Corporation reviewed the economic impact study to show a positive impact village-wide. I think that's very important to note here. Our decisions are not only based on this property, but village-wide as well. The third criteria, that the proposed use will not, in this particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of persons residing or working in the vicinity, or be injurious to property values or improvements in the vicinity. I believe this standard is also met. The property value in the area is something that may or may not go up, but it certainly is not going to be injurious to property values in my opinion. Safety and general welfare of the persons residing or working in the vicinity. I think by some of the amendments and the conditions we've put on, by moving the loading zone, looking at the sidewalk, making sure that people and cars are separated, addresses that safety. Also, the building will be fully sprinklered with full working fire alarms and have safety equipment and issues treated there. For those reasons, I feel like this petitioner has met the uses of the special use conditions, and I will be in support of this project. I appreciate all of the hard work that's gone in from everybody. There's no doubt that the Village of Downers Grove residents are engaged, from both locally here in the neighborhood to as far away as Texas, and there may be ones that are farther away than that. It's incumbent on us to address and listen and understand all of the comments from everybody, both sides of the issue, and we have to follow a pretty specific set of rules that's outlined in our zoning ordinance or our law. I appreciate everybody's respectful and calm and polite delivery of their commentary and comments, both here and electronically. And I look forward to a positive condominium development for our town. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Commissioner. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Rankin, ladies first.
I've kind of held back on my comments until this time, so if you'll just give me a few minutes. We've received a lot of communication, as my colleagues have said, via email regarding this petition, and almost every email asked the Village Council to save 942 Maple. I think we would all agree that 942 Maple is a beautiful house, but we aren't making a decision on that tonight. We are being asked by the community to consider many variables that are beyond what we are permitted to make decisions on. The appearance of the building, if we need more condos in Downers Grove, will they sell? Unfortunately, we don't get to pick where developments happen. A petitioner buys a property and they come and they apply to build a building on it. We don't get to choose. We've heard suggestions that it would be better suited somewhere else. We don't have the luxury of kind of playing Monopoly and saying, boy, we want it there and that's where you need to build it. The proposed development meets all the bulk requirements of the downtown business district. The petitioner is not asking for one variation. A condo development is an allowed special use in the DB. We have a small scope to decide on. Did the petitioner meet the standards to approve a special use? And I believe that they did. We've heard much from the objectors to this plan claiming that the proposal is not in compliance with the comprehensive plan. I believe that this proposal is in compliance with the comprehensive plan and the village zoning ordinance. Village staff has detailed many reasons of why that's true. The objectors to this development seem to be putting more weight on the consistency with the comprehensive plan than the compliance with the zoning ordinance. The comprehensive plan is a guide or a roadmap for future development of our community, with general statements about what's desirable in our community. Some of the statements, depending on the context, can be conflicting due to the general and broad nature of the document. The zoning ordinance, however, is the law. As Commissioner Neustadt mentioned, we just had a recent review, rewrite, and eventual adoption of the new zoning ordinance. Any special uses that weren't desired in a zoning district would have been removed. We removed payday loans and massage parlors as categories because we didn't desire those in our town. Since multifamily is specifically listed as an allowed special use in the DB, it has already been determined by the village and this council that all voted on it, that this use is compatible with the surrounding area and appropriate for the neighborhood. It has also been suggested by some that this property should be zoned downtown transition. If it was zoned downtown transition, a condo multifamily unit would still be permitted as an allowed special use. And I think that in the council responses, it does address that the comp plan does not recommend to rezone this section of Maple Avenue to downtown transition. So, this is an emotional argument for many people, but we don't get to consider emotions. We have to be fair and apply the rules fairly for people to have confidence in us to make decisions. The easy choice politically would be to deny the petition due to the pressure from the public. In fact, I even heard, and even tonight we heard from some people that suggested that as elected officials, we should vote no if we wanted to be reelected to our positions. I would sure hope that folks in our town wouldn't want people serving in these positions that voted for things only so they could be reelected, and not because they carefully deliberated the facts presented to them and made choices that they believed were the correct ones. If we vote no, with an understanding that all of the standards have been met, we are putting the village at risk of a lawsuit that would be defended with our tax dollars. The hardest choice is often the right choice. I was always taught to do what I thought was right no matter what. In this instance, I believe the petitioner has met the standards for a special use. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no doubt that this proposed project does change the face of Maple Avenue. It doesn't look anything like what's currently there. And the community is upset by that. And we've heard that loud and clear over the last 3 meetings. Nonetheless, it does fit within 50 years of history for the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. And that, in my opinion, is the real problem that this proposal brings to light. The fundamental disconnect between the community's expectations for development along Maple Avenue and the policies that have long been expressed in the zoning code and restated in 2011 by the comprehensive plan. That this project is proposed for this site, despite the community's opposition, demonstrates a failure of planning and vision, and we're now required to live with it. I'm going to vote in favor of the special use, not necessarily because I think it's the perfect fit for downtown Downers Grove, but because I believe voting against the project unnecessarily places the village in legal jeopardy, and that outcome is unacceptable. Simply put, the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance as written do not provide us with the tools to deny the special use petition. The subject property has been zoned commercial for 50 years, including its current zoning as downtown business since 2005. Throughout that history, multifamily has been an allowed special use. Since 2005, neither the zoning code nor our more recent comprehensive plan has called this property anything but downtown business. The village's planning documents have made it unmistakable that this property is part of downtown Downers Grove. But a multifamily development of this size and scale, along with this setback, doesn't quite seem right. And that's why this is a special use, to prevent things that don't belong. But the Illinois Supreme Court has stated that listing a particular use as a special use within a zoning district is, quote, equivalent to a legislative finding that such a use is one that is in harmony with the other uses permitted in the district, end quote. Put another way, our zoning ordinance would be interpreted by a court as saying that a condo building on this site is in harmony with the other surrounding uses. You combine that with the setback requirements in the zoning code, the allowable building size and height in the traffic impact study, and the tools required to vote no are not present here. The comprehensive plan provides no help. It calls for multifamily residential use in or near commercial areas, including the downtown, and it calls for buildings to be located at or near the sidewalk line. It defines the concept of mixed use as, quote, referring to a building, set of buildings, area, or neighborhood that is comprised of a range of land uses serving more than one purpose. That's on page 46. Nonetheless, some suggest that the village condemned this property in order to prevent the development. I have to disagree. The village should not be in the business of operating as a commercial landlord. In fact, we're attempting to get out of that business right now. Others have suggested that the village should deny this project because the village may sell some of the land on which we currently sit for redevelopment as multifamily residential. The very mention of this idea is unacceptable. This would stifle the free market and provide a disincentive for future investment in our downtown and our community at large to the detriment of us all. In my estimation, the central issue raised by these hearings over the last 6 weeks is where do we go from here? The overwhelming majority of residents who have spoken out on this project have opposed it, believing it to be out of character with the neighborhood. And you've heard questions from, I think, all 7 of us expressing a reservation of some sort or another. Therefore, I believe that the council must take action to review and modify the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance in order to ensure that the development along Maple of this size and scale doesn't move east of Washington and doesn't move impermissibly west or to the south side of Maple between Maine and Washington. This is the last and best way to implement the community's wish to protect as much of the existing character of Maple Avenue as we can. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Barnett?
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that came up this evening. In particular, there was a comment made about how residential should be ringing the downtown, not in the downtown. And we've done, frankly, the opposite, both in practice and in reality out there, as well as Commissioner Jose mentioned, in our planning documents. I want to underscore some things from the comp plan that I think are important, because obviously any one of us on either side of this discussion can take pieces of it out and try and suggest that it leads you one way or another. But one of the main things we've heard is that a single-use, non-mixed use at this site is inappropriate. So Greg touched on it, and I think it's worth repeating. Page 46 specifically says the concept of mixed use refers to a building, set of buildings, area, or neighborhood that is comprised of a range of land uses serving more than one purpose. That's important because the word mixed use, or the term mixed use, appears throughout the document. Almost all sections of that comprehensive plan have commentary about mixed use, but that's the one place it's defined. And that definition couldn't be clearer. It's a very short list of words without any ambiguity. It also says, on the same very page, that to continue its success and vibrancy, a diverse mix of uses should be promoted and maintained downtown. It strings off a list of them and ends with residential uses. Another comment about this in or out of the downtown. This is from our document that we use for planning, the comp plan. Traditionally, multifamily residential uses are sited near or in, not around, not ringing, not kind of close to. Traditional multifamily residential uses are sited near or in commercial areas due to the benefits from higher density housing to support nearby businesses. Future multifamily development should be located near significant activity centers. I would suggest the downtown is a significant activity center and along major roadways. Is Maple a major roadway? I don't know. It's got 9,000 cars a day. I don't like that. I live there, but that's reality. I think that it's important to understand that many of the things that we're talking about here are interpretive as it relates to the comp plan. But the comp plan is as Commissioner Rankin said, it's intentionally a little bit ambiguous. And it addresses that in and of itself as well. It says, it points out it's not a site development plan, page 25, and it's intended to be sufficiently flexible. That's exactly what it is. I think that the direction given in the comp plan is along this route. I think that, as Commissioner Jose said, it may be something we want to reconsider. But I think the documents we have available to us to make this decision now say this is exactly what should be done there. There was one other use, or I guess two other comments. One was the single-use issue. I sit up here, as a resident of Maple Avenue also, and I think to myself, if this were to be redeveloped in some way, would it be better if it was commercial on the first floor and residential above, as sort of the traditional concept of mixed use that people have suggested is appropriate? I'm hard pressed to understand why that would be the case. Many of the arguments we've heard tonight, or in the last couple of weeks, have to do with this idea of single use and the lack of some sort of commercial activity on the first floor. Maybe those people who say that don't drive Maple Avenue. But we would have a heck of a time dealing with an actual set of commercial entities operating the first floor there, or potentially any of the other places along that stretch of Maple Avenue, in addition to all the residential activities. This frankly strikes me as a way better solution than one that people suggest as an argument to not do it. I think maybe they ought to spend some time on there, like I do twice a day, dealing with the traffic, and understand whether or not commercial activities there would really make some sense. It shouldn't. Comp plan talks specifically about that. Multifamily residential land uses based on proximity to transition to the transportation network maximize their function as a traditional land use between single-family residential and commercial. That's exactly right, because commercial right there would be an absolute hemorrhoid. It's not a great spot for that. This fills that need. The last comment I want to make has to do with water. Every time we hear about a development, Nelson Meadow, Acadia, Station Crossing, go back, every single one of them talks about water, because water is a huge problem to our village. As we know, we've spent, $20 million or $25 million in the last 4 years. But the fact of the matter is that these developments, particularly of this size, are only going to have the benefit of improving our management of stormwater. That's just a fact of the requirements for approval, not only from this body, but from the county. Could there be an engineering mistake? You bet. Just like the airbag that doesn't go off, or the, dishwasher that fails in the first 6 months, to be sure. But no development of this size in this town is going to have any effect, at least by design, of anything other than improving the stormwater management characteristics of our system. So I just have to throw that in there because it's always thrown out there because it's a real problem for all of us, but it's just a fact. People need to understand and be aware of the fact that that engineering is required by other groups beyond this body, and this will have the effect, if it's done correctly, of improving the stormwater characteristics in that neighborhood. I think the rest of my colleagues have spoken to the special use question eloquently and effectively, and that's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The easy thing to do on this, since I am running for re-election, is to vote no and pray that I get all 700-plus votes. But that's not what I was elected to do. And not to repeat, which is a practice we have amongst ourselves, is to repeat each other, to take up microphone time. I am not going to do that. But because I haven't said much on this, I haven't emailed much on this, I want to at least set the record on where I stand and why I do support this project. This project itself is in our comprehensive plan and is in the zoning ordinance. It's allowed. That's what our documents say can be built there. We've had great discussion, presentation by staff, by my colleagues on why they support it. The zoning also states buildings in a downtown business should be a minimum of 32 feet tall. That's a minimum, and a maximum of 70 feet tall. In May, June of 2014, this council adopted these requirements in addition to the 10-foot minimum, or the maximum front yard setback. Of the changes that were made, the key elements here is that the existing buildings that we see and know of on Maple in this part of the block are non-conforming. So if the majority of the people don't like what is being presented, I think we need to address those and make the changes so there isn't another one of these types of buildings that are permissible under our ordinances and our comprehensive plan. And I want to thank everyone who had presented, who had sent the emails. You may think it wasn't, that you weren't heard, your items weren't read. They were read. We listened to you. We walked the property. I know I was out there over the weekend and previous weekends and so on and so forth. And I do drive Maple to take my son to school daily. And I do hear you. But unfortunately, at this time, Our comprehensive plan permits this, and so does our zoning. So in that, I will be supporting this project.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from the council? I just want to wrap up by thanking everyone for all their input, comments and questions. The discourse and dialogue has been respectful. Obviously, people can come at this from two different directions. We've seen it both in the audience, we've seen it out in the public, and we've seen it on the dais. In the nearly 12 years that I've been serving in the village council in one form or another, I don't think I've seen many special uses, or let's put it this way, there's a number of special uses that were split votes because reasonable people can disagree. Some of my colleagues even noted that here. So I just hope that regardless of which way this goes, that throughout the community there aren't aspersions of whose motivation was for this or for that, or who was right or who was wrong, because there's been a lot of good discussion amongst neighbors in our community, and people have many good opinions. They don't necessarily agree. People can interpret things differently. I've seen special uses go a number of different directions over the last 12 years. This won't be the first time, and it won't be the last time. But I appreciate everybody's careful, mindful consideration of factors, and ultimately, after a vote is taken, whichever way it goes, one of the things we pride ourselves on is remaining respectful among ourselves and respecting that vote as it goes forward, notwithstanding who is on what side. That's what people of a higher calling do. So with that, I don't know if there's much more to be said on this topic, given that we've heard it over multiple meetings and someone was keeping track of the number of hours. I won't extend that any further. The motion to table was denied, so we're going to get a vote on this tonight. With that, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Nay.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Nay. Motion passes 5-2. That brings us to item 8B as in boy.
Thank you.
A motion to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 20 of the Downers Municipal Code, subdivision and development ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this item from members of the audience? Want to make sure that no one's moving towards the podium to talk about this. Questions or comments from the council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously. It brings us to item 8C as in Charlie. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 7 of the Downers Grove Municipal Code, rate provisions for demolition, construction, site management?
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments from the audience? Questions or comments from the village council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously. Brings us to item 8D. As in David, do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Downers Grove Municipal Code to establish parking regulations during a snow emergency?
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments from the audience? Questions or comments from the council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Matter passes unanimously. I'm going to make a request on item 8E in particular because we considered this one and some of the others very late last time. Didn't really have an opportunity to talk about them. I don't think we wanted to talk about them, but in particular with respect to the impacts upon the sidewalk program. I think we may owe it to the public to at least have a discussion of it. Understandably, everyone was pretty tapped out last time when this came up, and I think we went through it rather quickly after the break, if you all recall. I know some people would ask some questions of me about what does this mean, and I don't think there's any rush to do this, so my request, and obviously people can do what they wish, would be to table this item to a first reading on January 6th, so we can just talk about it, how it interplays with our sidewalk program, which is obviously of great importance to this community.
Mayor Tully, I move to table item E from tonight's agenda until January 6th.
Second. Any further discussion? Any questions or comments from the audience? And I appreciate that, by the way. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That motion, that ordinance, excuse me, is tabled for first reading on January 6th.
Yes.
Seeing a head nod, yes, just making sure. All right, that brings us to the end of our active agenda, and that brings us to our first reading or our workshop agenda. I won't describe it because we have nothing on our first reading or workshop agenda tonight, so that brings us right to the mayor's report. The items that I wanted to report out, I reported out earlier with respect to welcoming CompuSystems to town, as well as the ComEd Town Hall meeting. Before we adjourn, I just want to wish everybody, my colleagues included, and all your families, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, as likewise to all of our residents in Downers Grove, and especially to our staff for all that they do to make sure that we can all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays as well. That brings us to item 11, the manager's report. Mr. Fieldman?
No report unless we have any special requests tonight.
Well, how long might a special request take?
3 minutes.
3 minutes we can do. 3 minutes we can do. Because I actually teased it earlier, I think we ought to actually have our electricity czar, Allison Deach, come up and explain a little bit about what I was talking about earlier in terms of the progress that has been made from the village's perspective as an advocate of residents from the town hall meeting with ComEd that took place earlier this week. So 3 minutes.
Oh, waste no time. I've prepared a short condensed presentation that covers the information that we provided last week at our town hall meeting with ComEd. Briefly, I just wanted to share a little bit of background. We had our fourth ComEd town hall meeting last week. ComEd brought several of their reliability engineers to talk about the improvements that they've made in the community since we held our first meeting in 2011, which was the result of a major storm season that caused a higher number of outages than we had seen in previous years, but prompted us to look more deeply into the problem of ComEd's reliability in Downers Grove. Sorry, I forgot about that. Okay, so generally, in 2014, we found that outages overall are trending lower. We do know that the storm season was mild, so some of the weather outages that were lower, we're hoping that is a trend that would continue even if there were weather that were in previous years had caused more intense outages. We found that equipment failures continue to be the most frequent cause of outages, but also those were tracking lower in 2014 than in previous years. And finally, we found that the outages that did take place, there were fewer that were of extended duration, which sort of defined as over 4 hours or over 24 hours. This is just a graph that shows how things have improved overall since 2011 when we first started to look at outages. We had a year that was not typical of our recent history, but still we're finally starting to see that trend downward a couple years later. This one shows that both types of outages that we asked ComEd to look at, we have weather and tree-related outages and equipment-related outages, are both trending down. But like I said, we're going to continue to look at these because we want to make sure that the improvements that ComEd made are making improvements long-term, not just temporary in times of good weather. And I should say that I know these are small. They're available they will be available on our website, as well as the entire report that we prepared. ComEd shared some information with us the night of the town hall meeting that they've done, things that they've done since 2012. Done a lot of improvements to their underground cable, which was causing the equipment faults, but they've also done a significant investment in adding more tree-resistant overhead cable throughout the community, which, combined with enhanced tree trimming that we've asked them to complete, we believe has led to some better outage data. So this is also information that they provided to us. Their distribution automation devices prevent outages. When one part of a circuit goes down, it prevents it from spreading throughout a larger area. So they consider those to have prevented outages, actually. They also said that they've had the fewest number of underground faults, which lead to equipment-related outages in 4 years, and the fewest number of tree-related outages in 4 years.
Like I said, we're going to continue to track these outages, make sure that the data that they're providing us is timely and that they're taking action based on the information that we get from our residents. And this is just a little bit, shows a little bit of the plans that they have for the next few years. And so finally, I just added my email address and my phone number to this slide because we're happy to take comments at the town hall meetings, but we can do more if residents contact us or businesses contact me throughout the year and let me know if they're seeing problems. I can contact ComEd and work with them directly. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
I'm going to say that was 3 minutes. Questions or comments from the council? Commissioner Burnett?
I just had one question. I don't need it tonight, Allison, but I'd be curious, some of those trend lines, what about the outage durations? I'd be interested to see what that looks like.
Sure, I do have those. I can provide a bullet point summary of the key points that show that those outages have decreased.
Other questions? Well, thank you very much for serving in this role throughout the entire year. As you aptly noted, it's not just the once-a-year town hall meeting, but it was amazing how many people attended the town hall meeting, knew Allison on a first-name basis, and having communicated with her throughout the year on this issue. So I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
Just want to echo Allison's efforts, also supported by Doug Kozlowski. We really do work as an advocate for our residents from the service that's provided by another utility. Call us anytime. I think ComEd appreciates Allison's efforts as well. And that ends our report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It brings us to item 12. Madam Attorney, Ms. Bacharka.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report tonight. Thank you.
All right. Item 13, council member new business. Do any members of the village council have any items of new business they would like to raise the rest of the council this time? I think one's already actually been raised. I heard from 2 of my colleagues tonight that they would like to take a look at the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance, particularly as it pertains to the north side of the stretch of our community that is currently zoned DB between, on Maple Avenue between Main and Lyman. I'd throw that out there as something to do. I heard at least 2 people say that they'd like to do that. I'll join my voice to it.
Yep. Absolutely.
4. Well, we can look forward to that in January. Any other items of new business? All right, very good. Then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?